March 18th, and I'm just out cleaning some of my bird houses out this afternoon. Get all the old nests and stuff in there that isn't supposed to be there. Make sure it's nice and clean for this breeding season. I've already cleaned this one out. It had a house wren nest in it, as well as a wasp nest hanging from the roof, which isn't a good thing. I think the wasps can sometimes deter birds from nesting in them. So clean that out. Now I'm going to move over to another house over here and work my way around our houses. Got my little step ladder here. Some of these houses are fairly high, so I need to get up to them. I'll just open this one up. So as you can see, it wouldn't be very easy for a bird to nest in here. This is a house wren again. They just fill up the boxes with twigs and then they can have their nest down in through the twigs. They're a very tiny little bird and I really like them, but they can be a big pain in the butt. Normally, if you keep your box 50 or so feet away from a woodland edge or a shrubby edge, you're okay. But I find more recently that they sometimes go well out into an open area as long as there's even just a few shrubs around. Normally they're nesting later and the tree swallows and bluebirds have already started to nest, so it's not a big problem, but sometimes they just take over nest boxes and it can be a bit of a nuisance. Interestingly, this box had quite a few dried up mushrooms in it, so I'm thinking some sort of a mouse or perhaps a red squirrel was also getting in here and using it for winter cover. There's also a little wasp nest hanging on the roof in here. I'll scrape that out. So this box also has a hole shield on it. This one I just made out of plywood and attached it with a few screws because the inside, the real hole, had been chewed out. And this house, which is used every year by tree swallows or bluebirds, still has just an old nest in it. I believe this one had tree swallows in it last year. Oh, and this house has another house wren nest. So you can see that I had to get out here and clean these boxes out. If you just left them like this, nothing else would nest in them. Maybe another house wren might come along and nest in it, but nothing else. A bluebird or a tree swallow wouldn't be able to take these sticks out and start anew. So it's vital that if you're having nest boxes that you clean them in the fall, or the spring, but I usually do it in the spring just to make sure they're clean. Now I can already see from just looking inside the hole quickly that there's another house wren nest in here, and I do remember, I think, that after the bluebirds nested in here last year, a house wren became interested in this box. Now it's not that far away from the box we just looked at over there behind the bigger pole, probably 75 feet apart. It may be the same bird, the same male bird, just filling up the boxes to attract a female. That's possible. But you can see here, I think, that this is quite an open area. This is at the top of our sand pit. There are some jack pines about 50 feet away, and then other than that, it's just these small little poplars and cottonwood seedlings that are here. Nothing that you would call a forest or even a shrub edge or a corridor. So it's a bit surprising that a house wren comes out here. So I may need to do some clearing of some of these smaller bushes and shrubs just to make it less suitable for house wrens, because they really typically don't like to be too far away from a woodland edge or a shrub corridor or a thicket. But I do notice that some of them are becoming more adventurous lately, and sometimes you can see them out in the middle of a fairly big opening, as long as there's one or two trees or shrubs. Yeah, sure enough, another house wren. And you can see that it was built upon the finer material, probably left over from the bluebirds last year. There was actually a male bluebird here yesterday looking at this, and I hadn't got it cleaned out yet. A few of my boxes are too tall to reach from the little step ladder, so I'll have to bring out the larger ladder once the snow melts here. This house is not really in the greatest position. It's pretty close to some trees and shrubs, and each year it's typically been used by house wrens or squirrels. You can see how the hole has been chewed open by red squirrels. And inside is a house wren nest from last year. Because we're close to the trees, they typically come in here. Usually this isn't used by bluebirds or tree swallows. I think they just find the location not suitable. So it's not a huge issue, but I'll clean it out anyhow. You can see I get some pretty wild paint schemes on some of our houses. This was put up just a couple of years ago, and this is one of the first ones I put on a metal conduit pole. I'm not sure if anything's ever been in here. Looks like a wren may have made a half-hearted attempt at building a nest. Start of a twiggy nest. And that was about it. Not sure this little house gets used very often either. Put it up here a few years ago. It does look like it has a tree swallow or a bluebird nest in it. I can't remember offhand whether we had confirmation of eggs or babies in this one or not. Maybe they just built the nest and never had babies or young. I can't remember. So this box is out on one of our main hydro poles coming in from the highway. And I've got one of these on a couple posts, and they do well each year with tree swallows for the most part. This one's had tree swallows for at least 4 or 5 years straight, I think. Yeah, so being out here in the open field, they're far less likely to have house wrens or other species nesting in them. So this is just the remains of last year's tree swallow nest. Now this one was pretty well empty except for this beehive that was hanging from the top of the roof up in here. So not sure if that had anything to do with it. You can see this box has been out for 10 years now. It's getting a little bit ramshackle. When you look from the front, you can see that the sides have warped out here, and it's getting a little splayed out, which isn't great for keeping weather out and stuff, but this was just stained and it seems to have lasted pretty well. Let's see. Oh my God, what's in here? What a mess. Looks like probably a red squirrel's been in here. Also a house wren. There's some red pine bark here, not sure. There's even dirt, so I don't know. There might be something living in here. So there was just a big pile of twigs and bark in here. No living animals. Now it doesn't mean that they may not come here in the evening to sleep or whatever, but it was quite a mess. But you can see it's not in the ideal place. We've got red pine about 30 feet away in a row, so that's pretty prone to squirrels. And you can even see my arena board plate here has been chewed open a bit with squirrels. That's tough stuff. Tough, hard plastic. Another house from 2012, so 10 years of age this spring. And you can see this one with the template in front of the hole has also been chewed to some degree. And this one does still have the remains of a bluebird nest in it. I remember this one from last year. I think they were successful, if I remember right. I'm pretty sure bluebirds were in here last year. I just can't remember if they actually had young or not. I think they did. Yeah, a nice little pine needle nest. Bluebirds here often use the pine needles, I guess just because they're readily available. Otherwise, they use grasses and straws, especially if they're in fieldy areas. This is a pretty new box that I just put up last summer, March of 21, as you can see here. And this one I used a clear coat acrylic finish. You can see here, I wrote it on here, finished with 5 coats of diamond wood finish. I just wanted to test it to see how it stands up. This box also had bluebirds last year, and you can see the old nest here. This is my box by the new pond. It usually has birds every year, bluebirds or tree swallows. Quite a successful box location. This one just has a very fine layer of straw, fine straw and grass on the bottom. From this property on any given year, we could have 50 or more tree swallow young fledging, 20 to 30 bluebird young coming out. So it's a great feeling when you see them come out. You can probably see that big hill ahead of us there, or it may not look too big in this view, but it's a fairly big hill. I have to climb up to the top of that. You'll probably see a little pole just on the top right end of it. There's a birdhouse there that I have to clean out. Well, we're getting up the hill, heading towards that little pole up there. Stupidly, when I put this house up, I didn't leave a whole lot of room for the ladder before the edge of the hill falls off. I've got barely enough room, but I should have put it back a little further. Here's the view from up on this hill, looking down into our old sand pit. This box has been used fairly regularly by tree swallows. Yeah, just an old messy tree swallow house full of dung and stuff. And the last box I'll be doing right now. This is about halfway down the side of the big hill that we were just on. This is situated on a little out-pocketing of the big hill, you can see here, and then heads down into the lower pit. This one's been used by tree swallows a few times. Well, looks like a mouse has been in here. You can see some fine fuzz stuff that they've collected. I'll probe through here carefully to make sure there's no mouse in here. So there you have it. For now, these boxes are cleaned out, and I'll have to do the other boxes on another day. Been out here for over an hour now.